Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this morning's webinar, Sage 50 Accounts, and we're looking at the VAT Return Wizard. That's what we're going to be going through in detail today. Now, it's a two-part webinar. Today, we're going to be looking at steps 1 and 2 of the wizard, and there is a step 3, and Jackie is going to be running through that with you at a later date. I believe that is tomorrow. So, what we're looking at today is preparing and reconciling with ease. My name is Matt, still relatively new to the team. At the end, you will receive a feedback form. If you could give me feedback on the session, that would be absolutely fantastic. We read every single comment and we do take it on board for future sessions as well. Even if there's a subject that you want covered, if you could add that, that would be brilliant. Without further ado though, let's move on to what we're going to be covering today. Contents. First off, an introduction. We've whizzed through that. We know we're going to be looking at the VAT wizard. First off, we're going to be looking at preparing the VAT return. What do you need to do? Some hints and tips in there. And then we're going to be looking at reconciling the VAT return as well. Again, full of hints and tips. Today is going to be very demonstration heavy. And by that, I mean it is going to be a demonstration. So if you've got a pen and paper, take notes, or two screens, take notes as well. You'll also be able to ask questions all the way through this, because today we are joined by the wonderful Michael, who's going to be at hand, a VAT expert, answer any of your questions in relation to the VAT wizard. Now, if you've been here before, you'll know the rules. If you haven't, these are basically the rules. Your microphone is muted automatically, so if you need to cough or sneeze, we're not going to hear you, so don't worry. If you do need to get in touch, though, as I say, with the questions, there's a speech bubble there with a question mark in it. Send us your questions. Today's webinar is going to be around about 30 to 35 minutes long, so you will get some time back depending on the questions that we get, though. We do look at answering all the questions within the time of the webinar. If there's any that we need to follow up with, we'll be in contact with you directly via email afterwards. So please keep asking those questions as they come in. We'll get them answered as best we can. You can download a copy of today's slides as well, black and white and colour. So if you do that now, it's done. You don't have to worry about it. There's going to be some helpful links on there for you as well, and some tips in order to prepare your VAT return and reconcile it correctly. So not to give the game away again too much, but yes, we're going to be looking at demonstrations of preparing the VAT return and reconciling it. There is a difference between the two programs that we have for UK and Ireland. What I'm going to show you now is those differences. The first initial screen. So on the left, we have the UK version. On the right, we have the Irish version. As you can see, not for me just to read out a picture to you, there are subtle differences there. You've got on the left your VAT return and your EC sales and your EU reverse charge. And on the right-hand side, the Irish version, you have the VAT return, the VIES return, the VES return, and the RTD as well. So then the main difference is the processes are pretty much identical. It's just when it comes down to submission, there may be slight differences, and there may be slight differences in what you see in the makeup of the program itself. Today, we're going to be using the UK version of the program. At the end of the demonstration, I'm going to go through a few more of the differences that you may see in screenshots, but those screenshots are also available in the handout as well. So if you haven't got time to quickly memorize them, don't worry, the handout's got you covered. So without further ado, let's jump straight into the demonstration, because that's what we're going to be doing today. So let me just bring my program up here. As you see, standard Sage 50 screen. And at the home screen, what we're going to do on the left-hand side where all the modules are, we're going to scroll down and we're going to go to VAT. That's where everything lives in relation to your VAT. Now, in Ireland, you'll also see your VES return as well. Return of trading details, so not just VAT returns, VAT returns for Ireland. In the UK, you may also see your ECC returns. They are legacy, so they tend to be quite obsolete since Brexit, so you might still see those there. They are still housed in that list. But when you click on VAT, your VAT returns are there all in a list for you. Okay, as you can see, standard VAT return, the period in which they run, I'll dive into that during the demonstration, the amount, if it's been submitted, paid, VAT transferred. These are the parts that Jackie's going to be going through with you at a later webinar, VAT 2. So one of the most common calls that we get as techs, and with us being former techs, we can testify to this, is When you go to click on your VAT return at the top left to submit your new one, people call in and they say, well, it's only bringing up my old one. As you can see, it's already been completed, it's been reconciled, it's been done. There's a reason for that. As you can see in the eagle-eyed of you have probably already noticed, I've got it highlighted. And trust me, it is a common call. So when you're starting a new VAT return, it's always best to do the old, swap and clear, because it is easy just to select one and click open. It's very easily done. So swap, clear, nothing highlighted whatsoever. Click on VAT return. Super. Nice blank page for us to go to. Now, the date ranges themselves, it's completely up to you when you run your VAT from, as long as it matches what HMRC are wanting. Put it that way. You might just want to check on your VAT liability. Okay, so your date ranges here is where you would pick. More on that in a moment. I'm going to start at the top and we're going to go through the backup process. And you will always hear us talk about backups. When you're doing your VAT submission or your return and you're reconciling, it is vital that you back up first because this cannot be reversed. Okay, so more than ever, before you do this process, do a backup. Okay, not only do a backup, but also do a check for errors as well. I'm just going to do a quick backup now for the demonstration. As you can see, I've been rather naughty. My last backup of this data wasn't since the 29th of April 2024, which is terrible. What I might do here, a little tip, is I might call this one pre-VAT reconcile. Easy for me to find then. Easy for me to find that. And I'm going to do data files only for the demonstration, and I'm going to check the data as well. Once it comes back that the data is absolutely error-free, I'm fine to proceed. The backup will complete on itself. As I say, the reason that this is so imperative in this process is you cannot reverse a reconciliation. Once it's been reconciled, VAT reconciled, that's that done. And it'll take a lot of time to unpick what's been done rather than just restoring to the backup before you did it. Okay, now you can see today's date. Superb. I've now got that insurance policy that I can move forward. So back to the date range. So with the date range, again, as I said before, you might just wouldn't be checking your VAT liability for a certain period. You might be wanting to submit your VAT return and run it correctly, for want of a better phrase. As long as you're submitting exactly what HMRC are requesting, it's absolutely fine. That's why it's called an obligation period, because you're obliged to submit that period. But the date options, the most common is from month to month. I'm just going to change this here for my data. So my data, I'm going to be going from January to March 24, 24, 3-month period, and it states it here. You could use a custom date range where you get to pick if you want to check your VAT liability. So you could change this, or a leap year, whatever you want to do, essentially with the date range. This is the area in which you would change it. But as I say, most common, it's from month to month in that 3-month period. So another thing to touch upon here is this little button here, include reconciled transactions. I'm going to click this question mark just so you can see it. I'm going to read this out to you. So if you select this checkbox, the values on your VAT return include transactions which have already been reconciled in this date range. So for example, if you're running a VAT return for the first time, nothing is reconciled, you wouldn't have anything to include there. But if you've reconciled in error, for example, wrong date ranges, etc., and you realize, oh, I've made a mistake here, and you didn't take a backup, okay, and then you have to rerun the VAT return, you would tick this box. It's very rarely used. It's mainly our technicians who would advise you to use this, because if you are to use this, it means that something somewhere has gone a little bit wrong. The best option and the primary option, anybody at Sage will tell you, is take the backup, and if anything goes wrong, restore back to before the reconciliation was done. Okay, so as useful as this could be, again, it usually indicates that something's gone wrong there with the reconciliation because you're redoing the VAT reconciliation and you're including what you've already reconciled, if that makes sense. Any questions on that, fire them in. But hopefully I've made that nice and clear for you. So again, something's gone wrong, you're probably going to be ticking that box there. On to the third box. So once we've done the backup, we've selected our date range and we're happy with that. We're then going to look at VAT verification. Okay, so when we click into the settings here, one thing I'm going to point out before we start is for our Irish customers doing an Irish VAT return, then your percentages will be different. Your T1 tax code amount may be different also. These are set to defaults for UK. It's the first thing. But essentially with the VAT verification settings, this is checking what your VAT reconciliation is going to include and if there's been any errors. Best way for me to explain that quite clearly is if I look at duplicate entries here. Let's say you have a subscription model in your business and you've got 500 customers all paying £5.99 per month. When you run the VAT reconciliation, the calculation, Sage 50 might pick those up as duplicate entries. It's not saying that there's a problem. It's not saying, oh, this is wrong. It's saying, do you want to double check this? And it would get you to double check and make sure that they are all correct transactions. If you didn't want to spend the time going through those not duplicate but identified as duplicate transactions, you would just untick that and Sage would ignore anything that was exactly the same. So you would untick that with confidence. Again, not to go through every single option, but it applies. So if you have a most commonly used tax code, you can untick that as well. Because if you're using T1 all the time, but accidentally you've typed a T2, for example, the verification check will pick up that T2 and say, oh, you don't usually use this tax code, it's being used here. Do you want to check it? So that, again, would be this one. Identifying sales and purchase transactions not using your most common tax code. So really handy to use. And what's really good about this as well is you can mix and match. To, for the sake of argument, you could just pick the bottom 4 other potential issues, or you could just pick one, the duplicate entries. You could clear them all, you can select them all. So again, it's modeling the verification settings to what you want it to look for. And again, just to really underline the point, this isn't picking out things that are wrong. It's looking for things that it wants you to check. Sage is saying, just have a look at this and just fact check it, make sure it's right. Okay. And so again, for the demonstration, I'm just going to have them all ticked and click OK. Now, once I've done that, you'll see on the right-hand side, you've got the VAT boxes. Now, in the UK, you've got 9, and in Ireland, you've got 11. Some of the information is different within those boxes. Again, it's applicable to your VAT scheme and what you're doing. I'll show that at the end. I've got a table for that as well. But again, because with the UK one, we've got 9 tables here. Once I am happy that I have backed up, once I'm happy with the dates, and once I'm happy with the VAT verification settings that I have set up, I'm going to click Calculate VAT Return, like so. How quick was that? So, Sage has got away, looked through all my transactions for that period of time, and it's basically adding what should be included on the VAT return. However, it's come back with some things that it wants me to look at. It's found 51 transactions for that submission period. 4 of these are unreconciled or before. Now, what could these potentially be? Now, anything in this VAT unreconciled but is in the time period is going to be one of 2 things. It's going to be a late submission, so something you've added after you previously reconciled, or it's going to be something that was amended. Okay, now automatically I can see that this here is a late submission. And I can see here that this is something that's been amended. because the details say cancel and it's been replaced. Now, what you might want to do is investigate these before you either choose to include or ignore. Okay. In this stage of the program, you can't mix and match what you want to include and want to ignore. It is all or nothing. So if you've got a big long list in front of you here and you click ignore, it won't take into consideration maybe some of the transactions that need to be in there. If you click include, it's going to include everything. So I can't go through every single scenario on this webinar. I hope you appreciate that. But what I can do is give you the tools to figure out and do that bit of investigating. Now, what I do in this scenario is I would click to Excel or print, mainly to Excel though. Because when I click to Excel, what it's going to do, it's going to send all those transactions over to an Excel document. And that is here. Okay. Everything in that list in front is now in an Excel document for me to investigate and use my Excel tools in order to help me do that. So if I wanted to check on these transactions, you've got the transaction numbers there on the left-hand side. So you can search for those in your transactions list, make sure that they should be included. If they're not included, edit them, alter them, delete them, do what you need to do in order to make the VAT return correct, the calculation correct. You can investigate why this was edited. For we can see here that £10 has been added. But you may have more complex transactions that you want to investigate. And the best way to do that is to go to Excel and click out of your VAT list, click on your transactions and just search for them individually and see what's going on. So quite easily do this. Your VAT return hasn't been saved of where you've gone up to. You'll be able to go to your transactions. One of the transactions I had on there was 2381. I would click search and there it is. I can see it and I can investigate, is that to be included or ignored? Once I've investigated that one, click the dustbin and then investigate another one. So 2388 was another one. And this is the one that was cancelled. And I can have a look at these individual transactions and figure out where they should be. If you've never done that before, you may have a longer list than you'd want. But once you've done the investigating, you've done what you need to do and tidied up the books, it's going to be nice and easy for you. So swap in clear, VAT return, put my dates back to what they should be. I've already backed up, remember, I haven't made any changes. If I have made changes by deleting or moving transactions, then I would back up again. In this demonstration, I haven't. Excellent, all done. 8 checks are still there. Calculate VAT. And I am going to include these transactions just for the demonstration. If you click ignore, the next time you do your VAT return, those transactions are still going to be there because last time you chose to ignore them. Hopefully that makes sense. So we'll include them for now. So that's super. So that's the complex part out of the way, if I'm honest with you. That's the most complex part that you'll have when you're preparing, reconciling your VAT return. To complete stage 2, what you would want to do is check these numbers here. So once you click calculate, you're now at step 2, all the boxes have changed. Okay, your numbers are on the right-hand side and the results and other options are on the left-hand side. Top left, we've got verification results. So those 8 rules that we set at the start for the VAT verification, this is what the net has captured. This is exactly what it's been looking for. So there was no duplicates, but there was one invoice or credit which has not been updated to ledgers. So I can click on view and have a look. It gives me the invoice number, the reference, and I can have a look at that. And again, I can click print or to Excel if there's a long list, and I can do my investigating. Should that have been updated to ledgers? Sage is just letting me know, Matt, have a look at this. Check this out before you do anything else. The same with the purchase order. Again, it's found one, not invoiced. So supplier may not have sent me an invoice for this. So I may want to get on the phone to them. Again, if I've got a big list, I'm going to print or I'm going to send to Excel. Superb. Again, other potential issues, VAT code, the tax code there, T1. That's not one that I usually use, so Sage is saying, is this right? If it is right, apps don't need to do anything. If it isn't right, investigate. Send to Excel, get that list. Again, not to repeat myself constantly, but again, it's the same. Commonly used tax code T2, T5. Do I need to go and have a look at them? Click send to Excel, it'll upload, it'll create an Excel document with the list. Again, take that away, do some investigating. And it'll always come back in lists like this with the detail. So Sage is doing everything it possibly can to make sure that your submission is correct for you, based on the rules that you're giving it, based on what's been inputted in the transactions over that period in time. Further to that, you can make adjustments. So by clicking on make an adjustment, if you check the box on the right hand side and you click on make an adjustment and you think, hang on a minute, these aren't right, for example, and this is just an example, again, HMRC have said that I've got to put £100 to my VAT return, I can add that here by clicking on make an adjustment. So what I would do is click on the pencil and it brings up the VAT manual adjustments. So I'm just going to put HMRC instruction. Again, this is just me making up a scenario. Tab across, type in 100, click save. And there we are. It's adjusted it by £100. That's a manual adjustment. What I can do to back that up for my records is I can add an attachment. So if it was a letter or an email from HMRC that said make this adjustment, I'll click on add an attachment and I may add the email, screen grab, or a scan of the letter into here. This isn't anything that gets submitted to HMRC. This is for your records, these attachments. But it's good for your audit to look back on and think, why did we make that change? If it's questioned by HMRC, for example, you could say, well, you asked me to do that. Here's the proof. And you've got it all saved in one place. You don't have to add the attachments here. You can do them at a later date. But again, for efficiency, if you're making a manual adjustment, you can do the add an attachment. Depending on what the adjustments are going to be, you could potentially just go back and delete the transaction and re-input it correctly, which is probably going to be the better option. But again, it depends on the scenario for you. And what you need to do is if you use this tool or not. But that's how you would use that tool, essentially, one of the examples that you could use it for. Then what you can do is you can print your VAT return before you reconcile it. Remember, we haven't reconciled yet. When you click on that, it'll give you the option of what you want to have a look at. You could do the whole thing. You could just do the simple VAT return, a copy of the boxes. Once you click run, it's exactly what it's going to print there. Again, save that. If you want to save it as a document, job's good. You can do that at a later date also from the VAT return, from the VAT module as well. So don't feel pressured to do that straight away. You could look at your reconciliation reports as well, which is another interesting one, depending on what information you want to glean from them, is what you could be running here. So it gives you suggested reports that you could be running. Again, whatever information is that you want to subtract, depends on what report you would run here. But to give you the map to the path, it's essentially just clicking on the reconciliation reports there. Have a flick through the library of what's available and run the report that gives you the information that you want from that section. So get nice and easy, nice and simple, just a few clicks away from getting the information that you require. Then over to the right-hand side, we've seen this window, it's been there all along. What you can do, if you think that this isn't quite correct, this figure here, this box here with the 3 arrows pointing downwards, that represents a drill down option. And by drill down, what we mean is when you click on it, it'll let you drill down into that subject. So VAT due in a period on sales and other outputs, you say tax code majoritively T1, not all. And if I further wanted to investigate that figure, I would just have to double click on it in this window. So click, click, and it'll further drill down and it'll tell me the transactions, the numbers. Again, if anything in here is incorrect or doesn't look how I wanted it to look to Excel, my program flicked there, apologies. But there, you see, click to Excel, and there's the transaction list. So I can go away, look at my transactions, say, right, I've investigated that one, that's fine. I've investigated that one, that's fine. Again, you might not need to have a look. Your VAT might be absolutely perfect, which is what we all want. But just in case you do, these options here are worth their weight in gold. And that's not just available on the top. It's also available on every other option as well. Again, drill down. Again, I might want to have a look at this section. What's happened in here? It's got the full list. So you can go into pretty specific detail with your VAT return as to what you want. Again, at this point, you can close out of this wizard and nothing will be any different unless you've made changes using the Excel spreadsheets I was talking about before doing your investigations, because you haven't reconciled. So you can easily close this, start again if you need to be. As soon as we click this reconciliation button here, the reconcile VAT return, there's no going back. You're then flagging all transactions as VAT reconciled. And that is when, if there is a mistake identified after that point, you would have to restore to a backup or click that little button that said include reconcile VAT returns if you to run it again. Before you were to do that though, what I would want you to do is to speak to our tech team, either the chat service or the telephone, to find out if that is necessary or if there's a way around it. But again, all these complications can be avoided by simply taking a backup before you do the VAT return. Very popular call, that. So I am happy with all of this information. I've understood the figures. I think they're absolutely right. I've made the adjustments I wanted to make. I'm okay with it. So then I'll move to reconcile the VAT return itself. Look at Sage warning me again. So Sage has noticed that I have made a manual adjustment, but I haven't attached any supporting documents. Again, I can do this now, or I can do it at a later date. I'm going to click no for now. I'll do it later on. And again, Sage is letting me know we cannot reverse the VAT reconciliation process. We strongly recommend you back up before proceeding. Do you wish to continue? I have backed up. I'm happy with that. I'm going to continue. Click yes. And now Sage will do its thing. Now the VAT submission looks nice and quick when I do it, but that's because I've got a very skeleton set of information here. You might have a lot more transactions than I do, a lot more that needs to be reconciled. So this could be anything from the time it's just taken there to a cup of tea to a couple of cups of tea when you're running it. Okay, so don't be disheartened if it's not as quick as what I've just done there. It's all about the data set and the time period in which you're running. If I ran this for a 12-month VAT period, it obviously would take longer than the 3 months that I've just done there. Again, there's other factors in that, the pace of your hardware, etc. But you know, it's all heavily data based. Now, I'm not going to run through this window in full because Jack is going to be taking care of that and guiding you through that. What I will touch upon here is, so you can still go into the drill down sections on the left hand side. You can still print and you can still look at your verification results, and you can also view any adjustments that you've made as well. And it's just confirming everything that you've looked at, basically. At this point in time, when you close the VAT wizard, your VAT return that you've just complete appears in the list there. The amount, and it's pending because we're not going through stage 3 today. So that is pending currently. Hopefully that has made complete sense to you. And also what you'll see is that manual adjustment I did before created a journal, JC and JD. And it lets me know in the details exactly. It's applicable to VAT return 6. It's a manual adjustment for £100 in total. So any manual adjustments you do will be journaled as well. Hopefully that makes full and complete sense for you. So what we'll do is we'll go back. That's the end of the demonstration. So we'll go back to the slides now, and we'll go through some of the differences between the UK and Ireland screens. Any questions that you've got, keep them firing in, because we've been joined by Jackie as well. So we've got 2 marvellous VAT brains in there to answer your questions. So these are some of the subtle differences that you'll see between the UK and Irish submission screens. As I said before in the demonstration, small boxes, the Irish one there on the right hand side. So that's one of the differences that you would see. Verification settings again, I pointed it out during the demonstration. The VAT rate and tax code's different. Majoritively there, what you're going to see. And when you VAT reconcile as well, you've got the greater boxes there, and then you have on the left hand side. So these are subtle differences that you will see. And again, the differences are mainly the boxes. This is just to put your mind at ease that no, the program isn't broken, it isn't different, but there's just different rules. Now on the handout, what you're going to have, some handy guides here. You're going to have the Great Britain and Northern Ireland VAT help guide from the Help Centre, and also the Republic of Ireland one as well. So if you've downloaded that, you'll be able to click on those links and you'll be able to access all the resources you can. Keep the questions coming in. We've got some really good questions coming in. And Jackie and Michael look like they're on top of them. Excellent. There was a good question that came in before from Pippa that I'm just going to voice as well. It was the management wants to know if they can check VAT at any point. You can do, yeah. And you can do that. I'll quickly show you in the program here. If you just click on VAT, I've already done this VAT, remember it's already been reconciled. Swap and clear to make sure I'm not picking up anything that's already been done. VAT return, and I can use this button here, custom date range. And I can say from 30th April, and I'm going to make this completely up until 1st of May. For some reason, that's the date I want to check. I can calculate what my VAT would look like during that period in time. I'm going to ignore those for now, and it will come up with figures, no transactions found for that period. But if there is, these boxes will be populated. So yes, you can do that. But if you click reconcile, that would be then causing the problem, because that's, you're flagging them as reconciled and you can't reverse that. Just have a look at the calculation, you're absolutely fine. But as soon as you click reconcile, that's it. Those transactions have been VAT reconciled. So don't click on that button if you're just checking something. Take it as far as this point and then close. You'll be presented with this message. Are you sure you want to close the VAT return? Just click yes. Saves nothing. It's all gone. Okay. So yeah, you can't just check individual periods, not a problem at all. Just remember to not reconcile afterwards. And if you do reconcile by accident, because you know, human error, it does happen, especially if you're working quickly, as long as you've saved that back up, just restore. Absolutely. So the biggest bit of advice is take that back up before you do anything. Excellent questions are coming in fantastically. So while the guys answer those, I'm going to go through a couple of other resources that we've got for you. So we've started the one-to-one training again, grow your knowledge. It's brilliant. So you could pick an aspect of the program that you want to improve on. Maybe you've got a group of people that you want to improve on it and have a one-to-one tutorage with those, with a classroom type atmosphere. For example, stock control, CIS industry, VAT submission, even if you wanted a quick refresher on a one-to-one basis, get in touch with us on the email that's just listed below there, and they'll be able to give you a quote on what a one-to-one bespoke training session would cost. It's basically an expert remoting into your PC on a Teams and delivering education live. Fantastic utility, and it's proved very popular so far, so we're going to continue to offer that as a service. Yeah, so what you would do, good question that, Katie, I'll take that one. So essentially, what do you do if you want to add additional entries after the VAT return? So if you've reconciled and submitted, you would basically just be doing a late entry. So when you key in the transaction, key in the correct dates for the period that it was originally entered for, or actually happened in real life, and then when you go to calculate your VAT return, that's when that box will pop up. The box that I showed you before saying, do you want to include or ignore? The transaction will appear in there. And that's when you either investigate to find out if it should be included and look at the transaction. If you know it's to be included, just click include, and it'll automatically include it on that VAT return. So when it's submitted to HMRC, they'll know that it's a late entry. Good question, that one. So yeah, some really good questions coming through. A very popular topic, especially this time of year. I believe that is us on top of all the questions. And we've hit exactly 36 minutes. So it's like we've practiced this, isn't it? Hurrah, brilliant. So what we're going to do is thank you for your attendance today. Thank you very much for being here. It's always appreciated to see all the familiar names coming and all the questions being asked. Again, if you could fill in the survey at the end of this webinar, does mean a lot to us. We read through all the comments and it's how we grow, essentially. But there's no more questions coming through, so I'm going to end the webinar now. Again, thank you for your attendance, and VAT2 is available at sage.co.uk/webinars. If you register for that with Jackie, we'll be able to see them also. Other than that, if I don't speak to you, have a great weekend and enjoy the rest of your week. Bye for now.